Hey guys, let me ask you a question. Are you making your PC work for you? Or perhaps the better question is, are you doing repetitive tasks on your computer based on what time it is or when specific events happen every day or even throughout the week? Well, whether you're working a desk job or doing personal projects at home, in this video, I'll show you different ways that you can use the task scheduler to make your life a lot easier. So let's get started by typing in task scheduler on your start menu. Once you open it up, you'll see a bunch of tasks that either Windows or other applications have scheduled. We don't really care about these, so let's right-click Task Scheduler Library and then create a new folder. Let's go ahead and call it My Tasks. And I have used this folder recently, so mine isn't empty. But in your case, there won't be anything in it yet. Let's create our first scheduled task by right-clicking the folder and then selecting Create Basic Task. You can give it any name you want since we're just playing with this feature for now. So I'll go with Say Hello and leave the description blank since it's not required. Click Next and now you can get to define a trigger. These are basically ways that you can have tasks run during specific times or when certain events happen. For now, let's keep daily selected and then click Next. Based on the trigger, Task Scheduler sometimes lets you specify how often you need it to rerun. Let's click Next again. Here you can tell it which action needs to be executed when the task runs. And most, if not all the time, you want to go with Start a Program and then hit Next. Let's keep this one simple by having the PC print some kind of a message. You can use the MSG command for doing this and then add an asterisk followed by the message as an argument. Click Next to continue and then Finish to get the task added to our folder. This task won't run until tomorrow, but let's see if it actually works. Right-click the task we just created and then click Run. You can see the message being shown, which means Task Scheduler shouldn't have any issues running this daily. Now that you understand how tasks are created, I'd like to show you different ways that you can get creative here. We can start with one that automatically helps keep our PC organized. For example, I have a task here which automatically takes older installer files from my downloads folder and then moves them to another one to help declutter it every month. Looking at the trigger setup, I've chosen to run this at midnight during the first day of each month. And in the Actions tab, I've pointed the program path to where my bat file is located. And in case you're not familiar with bat files, these are basically scripts that help run a bunch of commands. And if you're interested, I've shared this script on GitHub, which you'll find in the video description. But you can use it for installers or change it to move other types of files that you want automatically moved on your PC. So up until now, we focused mainly on running tasks based on time, but you can also do cool things with system events as well. So for example, I have another task which automatically starts my Plex media server if my PS5 is online each time Windows starts. Most of the time, I don't need to have Plex running. So this way, I don't need to manually do that myself in case it's not already on. This is done by opting for the startup option under triggers. And notice how this one isn't kicked off based off of time. I have another bat file that's tied to this task, but I've shared this on my GitHub as well, which you'll find in the video description. The only thing to note with tasks that depend on finding devices on the network though, it does help if you have a static IP assigned. And another cool idea is to think about all the things that you manually do each time you step away or come back to your PC. Take for example the task I'm opening up now. Each time I unlock my PC, this basically checks to see if any files exist on my shared drive. If they do, it opens the folder using the Windows Explorer to catch my attention. And what's interesting about this one is that it actually has two different triggers. One trigger fires when a specific user logs on to the PC, and the second one happens each time anyone unlocks the computer. One more thing to mention here is that actions can have more details than just a script or a bat file. So for example, in this case, I make sure that the command is run while being minimized, but also exit in case the window hangs around. And the next one I'll show you is a little more simple because I'm asking the task scheduler to reboot my PC every week. So as you can see here, Action simply has a shutdown command, which is nice because you shouldn't have to create scripts for everything. But one thing I want to focus on for this one is the Conditions tab. Notice how I've selected the checkbox to ensure the PC is idle for at least an hour. This is super important because if someone has actively been using the PC while this task kicks off, Task Scheduler will try to avoid restarting the computer. Now let's switch gears by going over a much more advanced task that I've created. And here my reason for creating this task is because I need to know when my internet connection is back after an outage. But I don't want to keep checking the taskbar icon because it's not really reliable. And sometimes the taskbar icon shows up, but I need to hit Google to actually confirm whether my internet connection is back or not. And so for this situation and many others, you have to rely on something called Event Viewer. So let's search for this tool on the Start menu and then hit Enter to jump to it. We need to find the exact event that was logged when the PC was last disconnected from the internet and then reconnected. This is found in Applications and Services logs. Inside this path, you'll need to expand Microsoft, Windows, Universal Telemetry Client, and then click on Operational. There's an event that happens to be logged with event ID 55. From the event's details, you can actually see that it gets logged with a true state for internet availability. Let's click on the Details tab and then select XML View. This might look a little complicated, but this is exactly what can be used to schedule our task. So jumping back to the task scheduler, I already have the task open. Since this one relies on an event, I've added something called an event filter. If you look at the XML, it matches up to some of the things we found on the event log from the event viewer. So this basically helps the task scheduler know exactly when the task should get executed. For the actions, I've simply asked Windows to show a message indicating the network status change. But I'll show you what it looks like if this actually happened right now. And to do this, I'll go to my network connections and then disable the Ethernet adapter. This replicates an internet outage, which you can tell from the networking icon change. Now I'll re-enable it to get the PC to realize that the internet is back. And pretty much what happens is first the icon changes to connected and almost immediately the message pops up. So this was just one example, but you can even use log to get your PC to react to just about anything. The next two tasks are more focused on organization and backup. This next one finds log files from a directory that are older than a month old, zipping them up to an archive, and then moving them to a folder where older archives are being stored. If you need to use this script for a different file type, you can certainly change the file extension for your needs. And in the Actions tab, notice how this one happens to be a PowerShell script, so it's called a little differently than a bat file. And another task I always rely on is an automated MySQL backup solution, which gets kicked off every Sunday night. And what this does is export an entire database into a SQL file, which gets dropped at a location that you can specify in the script. What's also cool is that the name generated for the file is from the current date and time down to the seconds. And the last task I want to go over is purely on PC cleanup. And this is really for those that are OCD about wiping files regularly. Basically, this task will attempt to delete just about everything that's in the user's temp folder as well as the system one. And even before it does that, it will try and run the disk cleanup tool. And then after that, it'll try to wipe all traces of files in those temporary folders. So once again, I've shared all of these scripts on my GitHub in the video description, so feel free to use them however you want for your needs. So hopefully this helped you start thinking of all the different ways that you can make your PC work for you. Thanks for watching. And for more on tech videos and tutorials, please consider subscribing to this channel.